My wife's long-running affair with my friend came crashing down the moment I caught her red-handed and exposed everything, starting by printing out all their secret messages. So here's how it went down. My wife, 27 at the time, Chia Bryce on me. I'm 28, with a buddy of mine. For the sake of the story, let's call him Jack. A little background first. We first met when I was 23. It was at a friend's wedding. She was close with the bride, I was friends with the groom, and they sat us next to each other, hoping we'd hit it off. The second I laid eyes on her, I was stunned. She was absolutely gorgeous. When we started talking, it felt like we had so much in common. We clicked right away. We chat Bryce through dinner, then headed out to the dance floor. We danced and drank the night away. At one point, we kissed right there in the middle of the dance floor. A moment later, the bride and groom came over, all smiles, asking what was going on between us. They were clearly hoping to play matchmaker. We just laughed it off and kept enjoying our night. We didn't exchange numbers that night, but about a week later, I got a text from her asking me out. Turns out, the bride had passed along my number. Of course, I said yes, and that was the beginning of our relationship. Things were great between us. Sure, we had little arguments now and then, but nothing serious. About 3 years in, I popped the question, and less than 2 years after that, we were married. We'd been married just over a year when everything fell apart. Right before our first anniversary, I started Bryce noticing things that bugged me. She became super protective of her phone, started Bryce going out for girls' nights more often, and our sex life basically vanished. I brought it up a few times, but she always brushed it off, saying I was just being insecure. She AC Bryce like my feelings didn't matter at all, and over time, I started Bryce pulling away. I stopped kissing her goodbye when I left for work. We barely spoke unless it was something important. Then one night, while she was sleeping, I grabbed her phone and laptop to check through her messages and emails. I didn't find anything, but I'd read enough stories online to know there might be something in her car. So I took her keys and went out to check. That's when I found it, a second phone. The moment I saw it, I knew exactly what was going on. Still, I want Bryce undeniable proof. I didn't want her trying to downplay it with something like, it only happened once. I opened the phone and found only one number saved. I read every single message. Then I hooked it up to my computer, printed Bryce out all the texts and photos, and spent the rest of the night looking into divorce lawyers. I sat in my home office for hours reading lawyer bios until I found one I liked and shot him an email. It was a Sunday though, so I knew he wouldn't respond right away. Then I needed to know who this guy was. I typed the number into my phone, planning to call and pretend I was from Spectrum or something. But Jack's contact info popped up instead. It took me a second, but when I connect Bryce the dots, I lost it. I was yelling and swearing in my office when my wife opened the door to see what was going on. As soon as I saw her, I told her to get the hell out. She backed off and went straight to her bedroom. I'd never yelled at her before, not even raised my voice. I stayed in my office all day, just sitting there silently fuming, staring at the wall. Eventually, I called a friend, the groom from the wedding, and told him I needed a drink. He must have heard something in my voice because he asked if I was okay. I told him flat out that I wasn't and that I needed a drink. Badly. Without another word, I grabbed the stack of print Bryce messages and headed to the bar. I got there first and ordered 5 shots of Chase and a beer. I was just finishing my last shot when my friend, let's call him Bryce, showed up. He asked what was going on and I didn't sugarcoat it. I told him Lena was cheating on me. He gave me a look of sympathy and then I dropped the bomb. I told him it was Jack. Bryce got visibly pissed. He was the one who introduced me to Jack and all he could do was say, "I'm sorry," over and over again. Chase and I were never that close. We didn't hang out one-on-one or anything, but we were friendly at get-togethers. I told Bryce to keep it between us, that I just found out and hadn't even talked to Lena or a lawyer yet. I asked him not to say anything to his wife either, and if she asked why I was off, just tell her I was having a rough time at work. He agreed. We stayed at the bar most of the night, drinking and talking. Around 4 a.m. I called an Uber and headed home. I hadn't checked my phone since calling Bryce, and when I did, I saw a bunch of missed calls and texts from Lena asking where I was, when I'd be home, and if I was okay. When I got home, she was asleep on the couch. I didn't say a word, just walked past her and went to bed. I woke up the next morning with her lying beside me. I got dressed and left the house without saying anything. Picked up my car, drove to my office, and buried myself in work all day. When I finally got back home around 10:30 p.m., I was surprised to find her waiting for me. She said she'd made me dinner and asked if I want Bryce her to warm it up. I just told her no. And went straight to bed. She came into the bedroom a little while later asking what was going on with me. I just told her I want Bryce to be left alone. I was trying to sleep. But she wouldn't stop pushing and eventually I snapped. I yelled, Lena, just stop. I'm trying to sleep. Leave me alone. The next morning, I got an email from the lawyer asking if we could meet later that day. I confirmed the time and started Bryce getting ready. When I headed downstairs to leave, Lena had made breakfast and asked if we could talk. I made myself a small plate and sat down. She started Bryce going on about how I'd been acting different lately, asking what was going on, why I seemed so distant. I just told her that work had been stressful and that things would settle down soon. After I finished eating, I told her I had to head out. I got to the office and spent the next few hours counting down the minutes until it was time to meet the lawyer. When I left, I told my assistant I was grabbing lunch with a client. Lena had a habit of calling me at work sometimes, so I had to cover my tracks. The meeting with the lawyer went smoothly. I handed over everything I'd collect, Bryce, messages, photos, all of it. He looked it over and said, I'm really sorry you're going through this, but I'm glad you brought all this evidence. You see, we live in an at-fault state, so she doesn't have a claim on most of your assets. Honestly, I hadn't even thought of that. My mind had just been focused on getting the divorce done as soon as possible. He asked if he could keep the originals, but I told him I hadn't confronted Bryce Lena yet and didn't want her making excuses, so I preferred he just make copies. He agreed and had his assistant take care of it. I asked when she'd be served with the divorce papers and he told me it would take about 3 weeks. I thanked him, then headed home to finally confront her. When I got home, she wasn't there. I tried calling, no answer. Called again, still nothing. So I sent her a text that said, I don't give AF asterisk 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 if you're with Chase right now, get your ass home. We need to talk. Not even a minute later, she called, asking what I was talking about. I didn't say much, just told her to get home. Now. About 15 minutes later, she walked in the door. I looked at her and said, 15 minutes, that's about the same distance from here to Jack's place, isn't it? She just stood there looking stunned. I gave her a moment to say something, but she didn't. So I asked, nothing to say? She tried to deny it. Then came the gaslighting. She kept spinning stories and I just let her talk herself into a corner. Eventually, she started Bryce getting nasty, insulting me. That's when I slammed my fist on the table, hard, and pulled out the stack of evidence. I showed her the pile and said, you see this? This is everything I found on you. Then I started Bryce handing her the printouts one by one. That shut her up real fast. She started Bryce crying, telling me to stop, saying she was sorry and that she still loved me. I looked at her and said, oh really? What happened to all that fire you had a minute ago when you were tearing into me? Where'd that go? She reached out to hug me, still crying and apologizing, saying how sorry she was. I held up my hand and said, don't touch me. Then she said, let's go to the bedroom. We can do whatever you want. I looked her right in the eyes and said, sweetheart, I will never touch you again. Then I told her, you want to know who else has those photos and texts? My lawyer. I'm divorcing you. Now go pack a bag, grab your stuff, and get the F asterisk 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 out of my house. That was 3 days ago. I haven't heard from her since. Sorry if this post was long or had any typos. I'm wondering, anyone else been in my shoes? What should I expect next? Thanks for reading. Update 1. After I POS Bryce the first part of this, I got a ton of advice from you guys and I've taken a lot of it to heart. This morning, I started Bryce doing some damage control, trying to get my life back in order. First thing I did was schedule an STD test, got an appointment in 3 days. Then I started Bryce reaching out to the people closest to me, my dad, a few close friends. They've all been really supportive, giving me advice and offering to help, but honestly, I've got it handled for now, so I thanked them and told them I was okay. Next, I reached out to her family. I sent a text to her mom and dad, thanking them for welcoming me into their family, saying I appreciate Bryce everything they'd done for me. I let them know Lena and I were getting divorced and that I'd miss them, though truthfully, I won't. They were kind of overbearing, and while they're good people, I'm honestly relieved I won't have to deal with that anymore. I told them if they had any questions, they were welcome to ask. I didn't hear back from them right away, so I moved on to her sister. That one stung a bit. We were actually good friends, and I knew this was going to mess that up. I sent her a message that said, hey, I'm really sorry to tell you this over text, but Lena and I are getting a divorce and I want Bryce you to hear it from me. I also want Bryce to thank you for accepting me like a brother from day one. I told her, if you ever need anything, I'll be around. Right around the time I sent that message, her parents text Bryce me back. I'll write out how the exchange went. They said, we're so sorry to hear this. What happened? Why hasn't Lena said anything to us? I replied, Lena's been having an affair for at least a year. I'm pretty sure it started Bryce before we even got married. I wasn't sure why she hadn't contacted Bryce them, but I told them they should probably give her a call. She walked out of the house and I just assumed she went to stay with them. They said they hadn't heard a word from her, but they'd try to call her. They thanked me for letting them know and then asked, "Are you absolutely sure she was cheating?" I told them, "Yeah, no doubt about it. I saw the messages myself." They apologized again and said they'd try to get in touch with her. After all that with her family, I turned my attention to Jack's fiancée. I don't remember if I mentioned before that he's engaged, but I know it came up in some of the comments. I honestly thought this was gonna be a lot harder, like Lena and Chase had come up with some master plan. But it turned out either Lena didn't tell him I knew or they're both just dumb as bricks. I text Bryce, Jack's fiancée, around 3:10 p.m. and asked if she'd meet me for coffee. By 3:15, she replied and told me to meet her at this awful hipster coffee shop near her job at 3:45. I got there a little early, grabbed some terrible coffee, and why Bryce? A few minutes later, she walked in, ordered her drink, and sat down with me. I told her there's no easy way to say this, so I'm just going to come right out with it. Jack's been sleeping with my wife. It's been going on for over a year. She looked completely blindsided. So I added, I just found out a few days ago. I should have told you sooner, but I had a divorce to kick off and honestly, I was a mess. She asked me how I figured it out, so I told her the whole story, the same stuff I shared in the first post. Then I asked if she wanted Bryce to see the proof and I pulled out the binder I'd put together. She took the binder, flipped through the texts and photos, and just started Bryce crying quietly. I told her she could keep it, there were extra copies, in case she wanted Bryce to confront Chaser, just see if he'd lie to her face. She thanked me, stood up, took the binder with her, and I told her if she ever needed anything, she could reach out. She just nodded and walked out looking completely defeated. Bryce, I know a lot of you told me to keep it together, stay sober, stay calm, but man, it feels like my whole life just collapsed overnight. So I've decided to take this week and just sit on my back porch, drink, light up some cigars, and blast music. Once this week's over, I'll stop feeling sorry for myself and try to get back into a normal routine. On a slightly better note, I've already boxed up most of her stuff, clothes, jewelry, all of it. I even threw in our wedding album and every single photo she's in. When she comes back to pick up her things, if she does, I want her in and out as fast as possible. And before you ask, no, I didn't destroy her stuff. Aside from a few broken picture frames, everything's intact. Right now, there's not much else going on. I've told everyone who needed to hear it. I've got a doctor's appointment scheduled. My lawyer's on top of everything and about 8% of her things are packed up. If she keeps her distance, this might just end up being the easiest divorce in history. Thanks for reading, I appreciate any advice you've got. Update 2. Hey folks, sorry I've been gone a while and haven't responded to comments or messages. I think I've finally caught up and now it's time for an update. So, since the last post, I've pretty much been drowning in my own little pity party, drinking and then drinking some more. This is probably the first moment I've had where I'm even half sober since everything came crashing down. And honestly, I don't even know how to describe how I feel right now. I guess numb is the best word for it. In the last update, I mentioned that I told everyone about what happened except Lena's sister. She was the only one who hadn't responded and we were actually pretty close. Well, that same night after posting the update, I kept on drinking and eventually passed out in a chair on the back patio, surrounded by a bottle and a few empty beer cans. Next thing I know, I'm waking up to the smell of breakfast cooking. My first thought? Oh hell. Lena came back and thinks eggs and toast are gonna fix this. I shot out of that chair, already fired up for a screaming match. But it wasn't Lena, it was her sister. Let's call her Sophie. I froze for a second, trying to reel in my anger, but as soon as Sophie saw me awake, she ran over and hugged me tight. She didn't say a word, just took my hand and led me inside, sat me down and set a plate of food in front of me. While I ate, she finally spoke. She told me how sorry she was. Apparently when Lena showed up at her place, all she said was that we were having some issues, but that everything would be fine in a few days. She told me that after I text Bryce her saying Lena and I were getting divorced, she asked Lena what was going on, like, why is he divorcing you? And apparently that's when Lena just broke down and told her everything. I kind of scoffed at that and said, there's no way she told you everything, and then I walked her through the full story myself. Sophie said Lena had told her it was just a one-time mistake and that I was completely overreacting. I made it clear to Sophie that getting back with Lena wasn't even on the table, and if that's why she came over, she was wasting her time. And if she was still in contact with Lena, I told her to go ahead and let her know she needs to get a lawyer. Sophie laughed and said she wasn't there for her sister, she came for me. She said she'll always have Lena's back because they're family, but she also said she and I are friends too, and she wasn't going to turn her back on me when I didn't do anything wrong. That meant a lot. I stood up, walked over to her side of the table, and hugged her. I'd been stressing that this whole mess would ruin our friendship, and hearing her say otherwise really lifted Bryce a weight off my chest. Sophie ended up staying with me for 3 days, just in the guest room, and she left this morning since I was packing up to head to my cabin. That place is mine, had it before the marriage, so Lena's got no claim to it. While I was getting my gear together, fishing rods, hunting stuff, Sophie asked if she could come along. As much as I appreciate Bryce the offer, I told her she should probably go check in on her sister instead. She agreed, gave me a hug, and took off. I'm seriously thankful for Sophie being there for me. And before anyone gets the wrong idea, no, she's not into me. She's 20 years old, way too young, and it's nothing more than a great friendship. Oh, almost forgot. I went to the doctor and got test Bryce. I should have my results by Tuesday. Also, I've reached out to Jack's fiancée a few times just to check in. She says she's doing okay, but she's still not sure what to do next. I told her if she ever wants to meet up and talk, I'd be more than happy to listen. Thanks again to all of you for reading, reaching out, and just being so supportive. You've honestly been a bright spot in one of the darkest stretches of my life. And to anyone else going through something like this, all I can say is keep your head down and focus on what really matters to you. Whether it's divorce or reconciliation, set clear goals and take it one step at a time. For me, it was talk to a lawyer, see a doctor, notify the people who mattered. Try to keep it off social media too, that stuff will only mess with your head. Also, don't forget to carve out time to actually feel your emotions. Thanks again, and yeah, sorry these updates are always kind of long. Update 3. In my last post, I told y'all about Sophie staying over for a couple days. She left the morning I was heading up to my cabin to hunt. Some good news, I got myself a nice big 8-point buck on my first day out. That meant I had the rest of my trip free to just relax and do some fishing. Only caught 2, but they were decent size, made dinner out of one and butchered the other to bring home. I spent most of the trip cleaning the deer and just soaking in the peace and quiet out in nature. Besides a drink or 2 each day, I stayed sober like I said I would. The whole heavy drinking thing was just for last week, I meant it. Now, as for what's happened the last couple days, I got a call from my doctor and everything came back clean. Not too surprising, since Lena and I hadn't exactly been intimate in a while, but still, you can never be too careful. I reached out to Jack's fiancée again, though I didn't hear back right away. Eventually she messaged me and said she's staying with her family at the moment. She didn't go into much detail, but I think it's safe to assume things aren't going too well with Chase, and honestly, I'm just glad she's somewhere safe with people who care about her. I told her if she ever needs anything, she can reach out. She asked if I'd meet her for coffee the next day, and of course, I said yes. We met up at that same weird hipster coffee shop and ended up talking for about 2 hours. We talked about everything that happened between Lena and me. She wanted Bryce to know what I was planning to do, if I was filing for divorce, or if there was any chance I'd take Lena back. I told her straight up, once someone cheats, that's it. To carry on an affair for over a year, that kind of selfishness and disrespect tells me she never really cared. Then I asked what she was thinking about doing. She said she felt totally lost. Said everything she thought was real turned out to be one big lie, and now she didn't know whether to try and move forward or forgive Jack. I told her if she's capable of forgiving a year-long affair, then she's a better person than me. She said her whole family is telling her to forgive him and just go through with the wedding. I told her straight up that I was gonna be blunt, and then I said, look, just because your family wants something doesn't mean you have to go along with it. I followed that by pointing out that Chase clearly doesn't take marriage seriously. I mean, the guy cheated Bryce on his own fiancée with my wife. If that doesn't prove he's not husband material, I don't know what does. Then I told her she needed to make the call for herself, that no one else should be making life-changing decisions on her behalf. I said that when I first found out what happened, all I could think about was trying to find a way to trick my heart into helping my brain forgive her, but no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't do it. I also told her I'd only spoken to one person about it, but my mind was already made up. Nothing anyone said was gonna change that. I guessed that when she went to stay with her family, she already had some idea of what she was planning to do, but she let too many voices in and got pulled in every direction by everyone's opinions. I ended by telling her to trust her gut, because her heart and head might lie to her, but if something feels off, 9 times out of 10, her gut's probably right. She thanked me not long after, and we went our separate ways and headed home. The next day, I got a message from my lawyer letting me know Lena had officially been served at work. I messaged him back and thanked him for all the effort, especially getting everything done so quickly. Not long after that, Sophie gave me a call and told me Lena hadn't left her room all day, said she was curled up in bed sobbing. I told Sophie, yeah, she's been served. She's probably just now realizing how badly she screwed everything up. Then she asked how things went at the cabin and if I found anything useful. So I told her exactly what I did and how I spent my time out there. We talked a bit more, then said our goodbyes. After that, I started getting everything at the house ready, bracing myself for whatever storm Lena was about to bring. I figured if she was ever gonna explode, now would be the time. So here I am, just waiting things out. Got Advil sitting on the counter for what I'm guessing is gonna be a massive headache. I told my buddy what was going on, and he said if Lena showed up, he'd rush over to be a witness just in case things went sideways. Right now, I'm sitting here writing all this down, waiting for Hurricane Lena to come barreling through my front door. If and when that happens, I'll send out another update. Thanks for sticking with me and reading. Update 4. About an hour or so after I post the last part, I was sitting around waiting for Lena to show up and lose it. I didn't really have a solid reason to think she would, but after everything that's happened, I realized I didn't truly know who she was anymore. I walked around the house checking every camera inside and out just to make sure they were all up and running. Then I called my friend to let him know Lena had been served today and told him if she showed up, I'd need him to get to my place ASAP. I wasn't about to end up in jail because of this woman. Turns out I was right. Lena showed up at the house, pounding on the front door and screaming for me to let her in. I immediately got on the phone and called both my friend and Sophie, telling them to get here quick. Lena was going off the rails. She was shouting my name, calling me every nasty thing she could think of, begging me to open the door, accusing me of being heartless. And the wildest part? The whole time she was losing her mind out there, I was inside just laughing. Then I started wondering why she didn't just use her key. As far as I knew, she still had one. When my friend finally showed up, she was still outside yelling and cussing, so he stayed in his truck and started recording the whole thing. Only problem? This idiot brought his wife with him, who also happens to be friends with Lena, and she decided to hop out and try to calm Lena down. She walked up to her, wrapped her arms around her, trying to talk some sense into her. Lena's response? She slapped her across the face and screamed at her to mind her own business. That was enough for my buddy. He got the whole thing on video and called the cops right then and there. Lena kept screaming and swearing up a storm until the police finally arrived. As soon as they did, she switched gears and tried to act like the victim. One of the officers walked up to her and she started crying, claiming I hit her and threw her out of the house. But my friend and his wife told the other cop what really happened, that when they pulled up, she was already yelling and banging on the door, so they couldn't confirm anything Lena claimed I'd done. After that officer finished talking to them, he came over to my door. When I opened it, Lena pointed at me and said, "That's him. He hit me. Arrest him." The officer started to cuff me, but I told him I can prove she's lying. I just need to grab my phone. He paused and said, "All right, show me the footage from the outside cameras." Once he watched the video, he apologized for jumping the gun and assuming I was the bad guy in all this. I told him no hard feelings, I get it. Then he said they'd actually received 15 calls from my neighbors during Lena's little meltdown. Apparently she screamed, "He hit me," loud enough for half the neighborhood to hear. So by the time the cops finished sorting things out, they'd already made up their minds. After about 30 minutes of dealing with the whole mess, they cuffed Lena and hit her with charges for disturbing the peace, public intoxication, and even a DUI. While they were walking her out to the squad car, Sophie showed up and came over asking what the hell happened. I just pulled out my phone and showed her the video of the whole thing. One of the officers walked over and handed me the case number along with some paperwork. Sophie started firing off questions about what Lena was being charged with, but I didn't feel like talking anymore, so I just went back inside. Sophie came in a minute later and sat down next to me. She told me she'd only stepped out for 10 minutes to run to the store, and when she got home, Lena was gone from the living room. She figured Lena had just passed out in bed after drinking too much wine. We talked for a while, and at one point she asked if she could crash at my place that night. I told her she was always welcome. She let me know Lena was going to have to spend the night in jail, but for whatever reason they'd be able to bail her out in the morning. She said once I went back inside, she called her parents to let them know what happened and to ask if they could help bail Lena out since Sophie didn't have the money herself. We each had a beer and then called it a night. When I woke up the next morning, Sophie had already left to meet up with her folks. I still haven't heard a word from Lena, Sophie, or their parents. I doubt it was a pleasant conversation. Update 5. I haven't had any contact from Lena since that night, but my lawyer did get a call from hers, officially letting us know he'll be representing her. Finally, it looks like we can really get this divorce process moving. I also reached out to Jack's fiancée just to see how she was holding up and if there was any news on her end. We exchanged a few texts and she told me she'd kicked Chase out of the house. Her dad and brother even packed up all his stuff and dropped it off at his place. She said they were ready to beat the hell out of him, but she begged them not to. She just wants to put this nightmare behind her and move on. She thanked me for checking in on her and mentioned that her close friends had been supporting her through it all. I sent her a link to my Reddit posts so she could see the kind words and support people have shown not just to me but to her as well. That Saturday, the moment I got off work, I rushed home. I was planning to spend the weekend at my cabin again. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Sophie already there waiting. She said she came by to grab her sister's stuff and had a list of what my wife wanted Bryce back. I skimmed through the list, and aside from one item, everything was either boxed up or sitting in the garage ready for pickup. I told her I wasn't moving or handling any of it myself. No way I was risking Lena claiming I damaged something. Instead, I offered to pay for a moving company to come and handle all of it. I told her I was headed to the cabin and didn't have the time or energy to mess with Lena's junk. Sophie appreciated Bryce that and told me she hoped I had a relaxing weekend. She grabbed a box of Lena's clothes and loaded it into her car. Then she turned to me and asked if she could tag along this time. I told her sure, just go home, drop off the box, and pack an overnight bag. By the time I'd finished running to the store and loading up my truck, she was already pulling back into my driveway. I locked up the house and the two of us headed out to the cabin. The weekend was great. Honestly, that place has become a little hidden treasure for me. The view is incredible and it's completely off the grid, no people, no stress. It's the kind of spot where you can finally breathe and actually feel at peace. On Tuesday, I called a moving company, and by Wednesday, a crew of 3 guys in a big truck showed up to start loading everything. I made sure every box was open beforehand and recorded them sealing and moving each one. I also snapped photos of all the furniture and took videos as it was being packed up. I thanked the guys for putting up with me hovering around and tipped each of them $40. After that, I sent all the videos and photos to my lawyer and got on with my day. The house feels kind of empty now, but honestly, it's also cleaner, like a weight's been lifted. Bryce. When this all started, Bryce, my lawyer told me not to throw away or get rid of anything that could be considered jointly owned, so I moved most of the big items into a storage unit. I've been sleeping in the guest room ever since she left, and now that I'm finally writing this update, I've been picking out new furniture for myself. Most of it's in the garage for now since I've got the space. Even if I end up winning the house in the divorce, I'm not planning to stay here. Too many bad memories tied to this place now. Thanks again for reading. Update 6. It's been a bit since I last POS Bryce. Between coaching high school baseball, pushing this divorce forward, and dealing with Lena, I haven't had much free time to come up for air. A lot's gone down lately, so this might turn into a pretty long post. Thanks in advance for sticking with me. A few days after movers took her stuff over to Lena's place, my lawyer got some paperwork saying I'd supposedly damaged her belongings. She was demanding $2,000 in compensation or she'd be dragging me to court over it. My lawyer immediately fired back, sending her attorney a bunch of photos and videos asking them to point out exactly where the damage was that she was claiming I caused. He told me this was actually a good thing. It would show the judge just how unhinged she really is. Sure, it's a pain now, but when we get in front of a judge, this kind of stuff is gold. I don't think her lawyer was expecting me to be so detail-oriented, Bryce. But I document everything. Photos, notes, timestamps, you name it. After I found out about her cheating, I somehow ended up on this page and star Bryce reading horror story after horror story about what people's exes had done to them. I decided right then and there I wasn't going to be one of those victims. I prepared myself for every possible twist and accusation. At this point, nothing she does would surprise me. Lena's been calling me every other day, but I never answer. If she leaves a voicemail, I don't even listen, I just forward it straight to my lawyer. And every time I send him something, he always says the same thing: you're a lawyer's dream client. You follow my advice, you gather your own evidence. I've never had someone so prepared. He says that every single time. Not gonna lie, it always makes me smile a little. It's comforting having that reassurance that I'm handling this the right way. About 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, my lawyer told me we had more than enough ammo to completely bury her without even going to trial. And even if it didn't work out, it would still show we made a solid effort. So we set up a meeting with a neutral attorney's office. That was about a week ago. Before the meeting, he gave me one last piece of advice: no matter what she says, don't react. Everything said or done could end up being seen by a judge. We showed up early that morning, and to my surprise, Lena was already there with her attorney. We walked in, the lawyers exchanged greetings, and Lena and I just sat there, completely silent. Her lawyer got things started Bryce by asking what we were offering. Mine gave a little chuckle and said, with all the evidence we've got of the affair and Lena's behavior afterward, the only offer on the table is half the value of the house and half of the savings account. He told them that was more than any judge would likely grant her anyway. Basically, she'd walk away with what she brought into the marriage. Then he looked Lena dead in the eye and said that if she wanted Bryce to take this to court, he'd submit every message and every photo, and he'd make her explain in full detail what she was doing in each of them. He also said he'd bring up her recent criminal charges and play the video from that night in court. At that point, Lena started Bryce crying. She looked at me and asked if there was anything she could do to make things right. I told her flat out, "You've been cheating on me since before the wedding. All I can prove is a few weeks before it, but I have no doubt it started Bryce earlier. There's nothing you could possibly do to make me forget or forgive what you've done." I told her to sign the papers, that it was already more than she deserved, and that I just want Bryce to put an end to this entire mess. She cried Bryce. She broke down crying loud, dramatic sobs for 15 minutes before excusing herself to the bathroom. When she came back, she was still crying, but she signed the divorce papers and left shortly after. So now, in about a month, everything will be finalized. All that's left is to sell the house. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's followed along and offered advice. I don't expect anything else major to happen, but hey, I could be wrong. If something does come up, I'll be sure to post again, but most likely this will be my last update. So again, thank you. If what happened to me helps even one other person avoid the same pain, then at least some good came out of it. Thank you for watching and sticking with me through this tough story. If you made it to the end, I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.